Character. What does that make you think of? There's like the character like in a story or a movie, or maybe the character that like defines who we are as a person. Well, let me share with you this. The character of a character defines the character. And the character of a character defines the character's character. We're going to take a closer look coming up next.
And the people said, Amen.
Welcome, so glad you could join us. We're talking about character. I happen to know something about a character, as in a story or a movie. I've written several screenplays. I've been pursuing being a filmmaker for a number of years now. It's something I believe God called me to, and I'll share more about that in a future video. But for today, I was just going to share a little bit about what I've learned over the course of being a writer and a filmmaker, and things that God has showed me, or I believe He showed me, or parallels that I've been able to see more closely from a little bit of God's perspective on things sometimes, or a little bit more about life in general, why things happen, why they don't happen. It just occurs to me sometimes as I'm working on these stories, and then I have a deeper understanding, which I'm going to be sharing in future videos as well. But for today, talking about character, so you know, there's something that is, when you go to write a story, there's something that's called a character arc. Now, it's very important in a story. And this is something that is, it's the journey of the character, where they go from one place until that the character of the character grows, or may fail to grow at the end of the story. So throughout the story, something is happening to the person. They are undergoing some change, or maybe they undergo a lack of change if it is a true tragedy. And you cannot overestimate the importance of character arc in any story. In fact, you could say that is the story. The character's journey, their growth. Not that the character completes the mission or achieves the goal. That's certainly an important factor in a story, or could be something that drives the story or makes it, and that may be the reason that you're watching it. But ultimately, for it to be a really good story for you, and maybe you've had stories or films that you've watched, and at the end you kind of like, oh, that was just okay, and you can't quite put your finger on why that is, and maybe perhaps because the character didn't have enough growth, didn't have enough change. You see, it's not that the character completes the mission or the goal, as much as that is how does he or she grow or change as a result of the journey. So as that character goes through something, then they grow through it. And that's what we get to in our life as well. And this is a parallel to where that for our life, it's more about what we grow into, whom we become, who God is able to make us, as He is the potter, we are the clay. See, also in our life, in all circumstances, we need to allow Him to do His work in us, growing us, strengthening us, our faith, our minds, wills, emotions, our very being, just like the potter shapes the clay. So I was reminded about the story of the three in the fiery furnace. Now, the three being, let's see if I can say the names right, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, or we know them better as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, I wanted to give them their real names out there, even though it's very difficult for me to say it. I don't know if I said them right, because that was their given names. See, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were their Babylonian names when they were taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar. Their names were changed. So I'm sure that they would prefer to be called their given names rather than their Babylonian names. But most of us know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Well, this is an interesting story. And you'll find this in the book of Daniel, because they were friends with Daniel. He was their close compadres, if you will. And the third chapter talks about this, where the king Nebuchadnezzar builds a statue and orders everyone to bow down and worship the statue. Well, the three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to bow down. And so they faced the fiery furnace. Right away, there was a decree. And it says that the king was very angry that they didn't bow down. So they had this huge furnace, and they ordered that they be thrown into this furnace. Now, here is what their response was, and I wanted to read this to you. Where it says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. And then it says that Nebuchadnezzar was furious with them, so furious that he ordered that the furnace be turned up 7 times hotter. 7 times hotter. It was so hot, in fact, that when the soldiers went to throw them into the furnace, the heat killed the soldiers. You get that? It's so hot, it killed the soldiers, and when that happened, it says that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the furnace. It's because the heat wave. They opened up the door and they were taken out. And then the 3 fell into the furnace. But an interesting thing happened. They declared this. They were thrown into the furnace. They didn't bypass the furnace. I want you to take note of that. They had to go into the furnace. This is a very important thing to note. Because often in life, we think that we are believers, we stand with God, that we will bypass things and we don't have to go through something. But I want you to show you that it was their faith in their God. And they said, even if he doesn't save us, we will not bow down. He is still our God. Even if it doesn't come through our way, he is still our God. Well, in that moment, Nebuchadnezzar looks in the furnace. He says, wait a minute. Didn't we throw 3 men in the furnace? Because I now see 4. I see a 4th man in the furnace with them. Someone moves with them. And it goes on to say that Nebuchadnezzar said the 4th man was like the Son of Gods. Like the Son of Gods, or the Son of God. You see, we're never alone when we go through these things that feel like we're in the fire. It feels like that we're under attack and like that we're all by ourselves. But God never leaves us. He is there with us. There is a 4th man in the fire. Then Nebuchadnezzar called to them. And he called them out by name, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. And this is an interesting part. He calls them out, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God. Nebuchadnezzar recognized right away, there's a 4th man, their God is real. He saw, and he recognized that in his calling out to them. And he said, come out. He wanted to talk to him, wanted to see what's going on here. So you see, the king would not have seen God in this moment had they not gone through the fiery furnace. Had they not been tested, had they not gone through that. So when we think about in moments of life that God will save us and God will divert us away from any hardship, any hard times, any difficult moments, we need to realize that's not always the way that God works. God works specifically so that we can grow through that and so that there would be a witness unto the world and so that he would receive all the glory. And just as in this case, then King Nebuchadnezzar acknowledged God. He acknowledged God when he called to them. When he said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servant of the Most High God, come out, come here. So then they walked out. And I want you to see that they walked out of their own accord, they walked out of the fiery furnace. They walked out of this trouble, this difficulty, this thing that they were in. God was there with them through it. And in the end, they walked out of it of their own accord. And it says that all gathered around them, all the government officials, all the government leaders, all the king's council, all the people who were there gathered around wanting to know what's going on. Who was that in the fire with you? So you see, in the end, they had a chance to share their testimony. They had a chance to share what God had brought them through. All saw what was going on. So you may be going through something, or maybe collectively, as a body, we're going through something. We're going through many things, especially right now. But I just want to give encouragement that God is with us as we go through these things, that it's part of His overall plan. He is working it for good as long as you love Him. And in the end, everyone will see that He is Lord. Everyone will see. Everyone will know. See, I wasn't going to share this, but I just felt it come to me as we were going through this, that just the other night on a television show, they were mocking God, mocking Him on network television. And this happens from time to time. More than just making fun of somebody who is a certain belief or who is a Christian, but mocking God. And I was beside myself. I began crying out, Lord, how long will they mock you? How long will this go on? Well, in this particular case, I think it's because that in the end, all will see what He does. All will see. And when they see it, they will know that it was God that did it. He won't be mocked. God won't be mocked. And those people who mock Him, they will be judged for it. Finally, I want you to notice that when they did come out, it says that they were untouched by the fire. They were in the furnace, but they were untouched by the fire. They were in that difficulty. They were in those troubled times, but they were untouched, unharmed. God protected them. In fact, it says that not even a hair on their head was singed, that there was not a scorch on their clothing, that there was not even the smell of fire upon them. They didn't even smell like smoke. They didn't even smell like smoke. They didn't even smell like fire. And they'd been in the furnace, 7 times hotter. So you can think of that. When you come out of that difficulty, when you come out of that place that you've been going through, and God's been in there going through it with you and bringing you out and keeping you safe, that you can expect that you will come out unsinged, unburnt, unharmed, with a sweet smell of victory. Do you get that? That is so wonderful. Then I wanted to finish out what Nebuchadnezzar says at the end. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their house be turned into piles of rubble. For no other God can save in this way. There is no other God." And he finishes out with saying, "Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in provenance of Babylon." So it may feel like you're being tested by the fire. It may feel like you're there right now. As a nation, we may be there right now and being tested by fire, but cling to our Lord. Do not bow down. Do not give in. Do not bow down to statues. Do not bow down to other gods. We only bow to one God, the true God. There's only one. Even when we face trials and tribulations and all kinds of things, we must not bow down. And even though that they come attacks upon us, know that those attacks are there to build our character. Do you get that? We are but a character in a larger story. We tend to think of it as that our life is our story and that we're the main character. But we seldom ever think of that we are a supporting character in a larger story. And in that sense, we all have a part to play. But in playing that part, we do grow our character. We have a chance for a character arc to happen as we go through the fiery furnace, as we go through the fire, as we go through these difficult times. Then God will take us and grow us and use that moment in time so that in the end, we are at a new place. He will shape us into something new, perfecting us, making us more like Him. And if we will just let Him do His work in us and know that no matter what we go through, He is there with us as the fourth man. He is there with us going through every step of the way. And that is our witness to the world, as all will see that He is with us. So don't bow down, stay in the faith, and believe God is with us. This has been the encouraging word. Stay blessed.